So, if you were going to start a new business, what industry would you pick? Supply chain, of course. And today we are talking to Suchi Ramesh, who started a supply chain business about 4.5 years ago. Fascinating business, and that's coming right up. So, Suji, thank you so much for joining us today. You've got a very interesting story, I know, about starting a business in supply chain. My first question is, why supply chain? What was the attraction?
Well, the attraction was data, what you could do with supply chain with data, and then the size of the market, and I'd say the third was how ripe it was for just digitization and some disruption. So if you look at supply chains, it's so critical to a business. It's not something that you're attacking at the fringes. And not that HR isn't important or marketing isn't important, but it's one kind of business division, which the supply chain really touches everything. And the amount of data that is collected across supply chain, the departments and the flow of goods and services is massive. But these data buckets across inbound, outbound supply chain, the 3PL, the warehouse, the factories, the suppliers, the buyers, the salespeople, these are all sitting in silos and they're not really communicating with one another. So the opportunity to build products that could, number one, address the needs of each of these departments adequately, and then the added opportunity to have all these data sets communicate with one another and provide some really cool, easily configurable reporting and analytics was really exciting. And no one had really tackled the problem with respect to looking at it end to end. And to do it end to end, you really have to remove the complexity from it. So then there's the challenge and the opportunity of building a front end and a UI and a UX that can take folks into the modern world of what supply chain software should be like. So it was all of this in combination, and
Okay.
it's been really exciting so far.
So you started your career as a software engineer, is that right?
That is correct. Yes, my first 2 jobs I was coding. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then you moved to the States. I mean, was it kind of by accident that you actually got into supply chain? Because you worked with some really interesting sort of tech companies in the space first, didn't you?
Right. I was always dealing with supply chain data in some way, in some form, shape. My first job, Intel, I was with their supply chain analytics division, working off data that they had in SAP. And then I joined 2 different venture-backed tech companies that really they were selling data in the sense that these are predictive data analytics companies, and they were selling products and our services that were ingesting this data and then throwing out something that was consumable and actionable insights for the end customer. Most of these customers are Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. So when most of this data, even if it was say a sales forecast model or a market mix model, directly or indirectly it was touching the supply chain, right? SKU optimization, store optimization, what were the right price points. And so I think I looked at part of it was luck. It wasn't all by design, but ultimately it became, because I then ended up spending time with supply chain data, it made sense to jump a little deeper into it with controlling my destiny. So that was a big part of luck too. I think the companies I was with, that common thread was data sets, and there's a lot of supply chain data in there.
Okay, interesting. So one of the things that I find a little bit disturbing about supply chain is the gender imbalance in supply chain. And I've talked to a number of people on the channel about this over the last few months. As you got into supply chain, were you pleased or surprised to see the number of women that were being really successful in supply chain? And I guess, depending on that answer, what can we do to encourage more women, do you think, to get involved in supply chain?
Well, there's 2 ways of looking at participation for women, and there's really 2 playing fields for supply chain. One is the physical supply chain, which is the physical supply chain is the factory floor, or the supplier's floor, or the 3PL, the warehouse. I mean, there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, it's not about you're not sitting in a corporate office with glass walls. A lot of work across the supply chain happens on floors, and so that's perhaps one part of it. And then the second playing field is the product or the software that's used to run supply chains, right? And across both these dimensions, obviously there aren't enough women. But I think where the real opportunity is that the software side of digitizing and producing and building technology for running these supply chains. And it would be great to see more women there, of course, right? So then the problem statement isn't so much about why aren't there more women in these supply chain technology initiatives, because the problem statement is larger in that you can encapsulate it as just why aren't there more women building technology companies. And, there's different perspectives to it, but I guess two parts to it. One is, I think you want to encourage more folks with a STEM background, science, technology, engineering, math, and also more, I'd say, immigrants with that. It's obviously the self-bias when I say it, but I don't think as a percentage, if you look at the number of folks in the United States that, have a graduate degree after college, just the sheer percentage of folks that have that. Most immigrants, by far, people coming into the country, especially from Asia, most of them have that. And so if you marry that with giving them more opportunities to start companies, I think that can help that problem statement. And of course, I know, having gone through the process of visa and becoming a green card now, I'm in the process of getting naturalized. It's that itself, right? Easing up the immigration process to allow folks with that STEM background, and that's men and women. But obviously, this question you had is about women. But reducing the barriers to start your own company, I think that would help a great deal. And especially recognizing those with STEM backgrounds, giving them more opportunities. I think that'll solve for some of those problems too.
Okay. Do you think we promote the industry enough to potential leaders in the industry? I'm thinking at school level, at universities. Is it something that women notice, do you think, while they're studying, that, hey, supply chain has lots of different opportunities in it?
Not enough. It's a great question, and I wonder why not. Maybe because it's just not as, when you think about supply chain, it's not as glamorous as building.
Yeah, people think trucks and warehouses.
Or marketing and exactly. But that's where the opportunity is. To me, there's so much opportunity to disintermediate and to build the next generation platform, just because it's been untouched. So in many ways, I think if there are women or even men who want to be entrepreneurs hearing this, supply chain, there's so much to tackle. There's a lot actually that in the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, there's a lot of startups tackling the outbound supply chain, trucking, fleet, shipping, logistics. But if you look at it, the value chain, and I say value chain, not supply chain, is massive. It starts all the way upstream, inbound, from the point where raw materials are collected, and then it comes in, products are made, and then it goes out. So I don't think there's enough attention. The other part of it is venture funding. I think part of the reason it hasn't received much attention, it's only been in the last 5-6 years that venture funds have started to recognize that supply chain is a hot space. Before that, technology investments were going into sales marketing software, e-com software. So the timing is right. It would be great to see more people attack the problem statement with technology, and it's a huge market.
Great. So if people were watching this and wondering what industry to get into, what would you say to them about supply chain? What's the attraction?
Which is, I'm repeating some of what I might have said, but to encapsulate it, supply chain is a large market. That's number one attraction. If you're an entrepreneur, you want to take a big market, right? Because then you have optionality to grow and look at different branches that you want to climb. So that is a huge attraction. And the second is there isn't yet, there's a lot of upstarts and a lot of young companies. And then at the other extreme, you have a lot of, it's almost a monopoly. Some of these parts of the supply chain and the technology tackling that, a lot of the players are big. They've been around a long time. So there's this white space waiting to be captured. So I'd say the size of the market. The second, there isn't really enough competition for the small middle players that's empty space. So both of those are very attractive. And there's a lot of venture funding. If you want to scale in tech, obviously you want to know that there's money in the space, and there is money in the space. I'd say all of those three are really great motivators.
Well, there we go. The proof is in the pudding. Suchi, you've been running your own supply chain tech company now for, 4.5 years? Doing great things in the space. So thank you for talking to us this week.
Thank you.
And we'll maybe have to have another chat about more of the technology, maybe in the next week or two. So, and thank you for watching. And if you're new to the channel, do consider subscribing. Hit that subscribe button. If you hit the bell, you'll get notified every time we have a new video coming out. And videos come out every Tuesday evening, Sydney time. Love to hear your comments, of course, down below. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.